This is CBC Winnipeg News.
We got to stick up for ourselves as Canadians and to push back against this aggression from Donald Trump.
You're a very smart guy. This is a very dumb thing to do.
Shots fired, standing up and fighting back. Manitoba retaliates as the U.S. trade war begins. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Donald Trump has unleashed his trade war with America's closest neighbor, and Canada is retaliating. At midnight, the U.S. slapped sweeping 25% tariffs on nearly all Canadian goods and 10% on energy imports. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau leveled pointed denunciation directly at the White House.
Today, the United States launched a trade war against Canada, their closest partner and ally, their closest friend. At the same time, they're talking about working positively with Russia, appeasing Vladimir Putin, a lying, murderous dictator. Make that make sense.
Canada is responding with 25% counter tariffs on $30 billion of U.S. goods. Another $125 billion worth are planned if the U.S. doesn't rescind its levies in 3 weeks. Canada is also filing dispute resolution claims with the World Trade Organization and under the North American Trade Agreement. Now, those tariffs could decimate some companies whose business revolve around cross-border trade. For many, it means making tough decisions, layoffs or higher prices. But for many others, it means absorbing the cost and doing what they can to weather the impact. From the floor of a tire shop to industry leaders, the CBC's Alana Cole has reaction from people paying the price.
From mixing the rubber to rolling steel.
We take the raw rubber that we actually make here and then we mold parts in these machines.
Evolution Wheel manufactures all its tires here. U.S. tariffs on Canadian imports are weighing on founder Derek Hurd.
We have about 35 people full-time on staff, and it's been harder and harder to come in and look at everybody in the eye every day, wondering what we're going to do.
About 85% of what they produce goes to the U.S. The tariffs are going to hurt. For now, he says he'll be paying the 25% tariff south of the border on existing orders, estimating that alone will cost thousands of dollars.
For us to remain competitive, we have to keep our prices where they are.
President Donald Trump is going ahead with 25% tariffs on most Canadian imports. Canada responded with its own tariffs. The Prime Minister says Canada will help people weather the storm. Justin Trudeau doesn't believe Trump's reasons for imposing tariffs.
So we actually have to fold back on the one thing he has said repeatedly, that what he wants is to see a total collapse of the Canadian economy. Because that'll make it easier to annex us, is the second half of his thought.
It's all causing concern for the Manitoba Trucking Association.
Generally speaking, about 41% of our industry here in Manitoba is engaged in north-south trade between Canada and the United States, and that's, by our rough math, more than 12,000 Manitobans.
The head of Keystone Agriculture Producers says tariffs harm farmers and consumers on both sides of the border.
It's hard to believe that the Trump administration has only been in place for 43 or 44 days. It feels like an eternity.
Hurd says for now, he and his team are looking at their options. One possibility, moving some manufacturing to the U.S.
Somebody told me once that when you have to figure out how to put food on your table, you're going to do what you got to do.
Among the unknowns for Hurd, the potential cost of Canadian tariffs on materials he brings in from the U.S. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Premier Wab Kinew says his government is responding by sticking up for Manitobans. The province is offering tax relief for businesses and taking American products off some shelves. For more, we're joined by the CBC's Ian Fraze. And Ian, let's start with the tax relief. What's the province offering?
Well, they're giving businesses a choice to defer some of their taxes. They're talking about the PST and the payroll, so that would be deferred for at least 3 months. This would help these businesses save money when they really need it. Premier Wab Kinew spoke to media Tuesday outside the Manitoba Legislative Building, where a giant Canadian flag was draped over the front entrance. Kinew says the tax deferrals are meant to keep people working.
If companies choose to opt in, this is about them having liquidity, having that cash on hand, having those dollars to keep paying people's paychecks and keep the machinery of their business, so to speak, running.
So Ian, the province also ordered liquor marts to pull U.S.-made products from their shelves. How's that working out so far?
Well, Brittany, it's been a busy day for Liquor Mart employees. As you can see at the Liquor Mart on Sterling Line Parkway, U.S.-made products have either been removed or hidden. Staff have been doing this work all day long and into the overnight, according to Liquor and Lotteries. As well, Kinew said today that the province is asking private wine stores to remove American products, and Liquor and Lotteries says it stops selling American products to restaurants and bars.
The good news about this is that the Canadian booze is way better than the American stuff. And so this is one sacrifice that I think everybody from coast to coast to coast can get behind.
So the Premier also said today that more help is coming. There'll be some additional non-tariff countermeasures. What could that look like?
Well, the Premier did not say exactly, but he offered hints. He was asked by reporters about canceling contracts with American companies, banning them from bidding on future work, and cutting off hydroelectricity. Those were all possible scenarios, and in all those areas, Kinew answered he'd have more to say in the coming days. So that's what the government is planning. But from some people we spoke to, they're saying they're trying to do their part as well. Take a look.
Trying to do everything Canadian. And most of the seniors that I know, they're all thinking, let's see if we can buy Canadian first and see if that'll make a difference.
And I know Trump seems to have a really clear idea about how the tariffs will work, but we buy a lot of their products, and I don't know what they think is going to happen with the tariffs and how Canadians shop, but I'm definitely making changes with how I decide what to purchase.
A lot of Americans don't know how tariffs work, and like for me, like I have great high school education and university education. I know how tariffs work. Both countries have like ties, so it's a lose-lose situation for both.
Those people at least are hoping to make a difference with their wallet. Brittany.
All right, thank you, Ian. That's CBC's Ian Fraze. Well, they help search the streets for Winnipeg's missing, going out in the dark, the bitter cold. They look in places that aren't always safe, hoping to bring people home. Now the Bear Clan is adding to its force. In a city that leads the country when it comes to the number of missing Indigenous people, they hope this can make real change. Felicia Adam has more.
Bear Clan often walks these streets, doing safety patrols and helping those that need it. The group also tries to help find missing people, an initiative they began 4 years ago. Now they're teaming up with Aboriginal Alert and Crime Stoppers in hopes to bring home more Manitobans. It means those who have information about a missing persons case can come forward anonymously, something Crime Stoppers says will bring in more information. The initiative will also include Aboriginal Alert, an online network that posts missing Indigenous people across Canada. Together, they say the combination of resources from all three organizations will help tackle a growing problem and help in missing persons investigations. Angela Klassen says last year, Winnipeg saw over 4,000 missing persons cases. She says Bear Clan worked with families of 321 missing people.
Out of those 321 people, we were able to successfully help locate 228, giving us a 71% success rate. We hope to build on that success rate with the help of Crime Stoppers and with our partnership of Aboriginal Alert.
While people can still report information to Winnipeg Police, those three organizations are there for people who don't feel comfortable bringing information to officers. Felicia Adam, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, Brittany, another day where temperatures are pretty much at or even above seasonal for many of us. We've dropped back a little bit from Monday, especially after we hit double digits above the freezing mark in northwestern Ontario, but still overall not too bad province-wide. A little bit of some wind as well today, though, especially through southern Manitoba. We've been seeing those gusts at times in the range of 40 to 50 kilometers an hour. Nothing overly strong, but the good news is as we head into Wednesday, I think we're going to notice those winds coming down quite a bit. The other thing that we'll notice, a lot more sunshine after our cloudier and snowier day Tuesday, and some warmer temperatures as well. As we get toward the noon hour, already looking at a temperature of around -4 under those nice bright sunny skies. A little bit of cloud cover moving in for the afternoon commute home, but overall temperature getting to near the freezing mark and those winds staying fairly light. So a nice Wednesday in store for many of us across the province.
Another proposed rate hike. We'll tell you how much and when coming up. Winnipeggers can expect a big jump in their sewer and garbage bills this year, although not quite as big as what city staff are proposing. Mayor Scott Gillingham says he rejects a set of steep increases to sewer rates. CBC's Cameron McLean reports.
The cost of flushing your toilet is about to go up. The City of Winnipeg released a new set of proposed sewer rates that would see an average household's annual bill nearly double within the next few years. Today, Mayor Scott Gillingham called the proposed increase too high.
We are saying we do not accept that. I oppose that. We'll do propose a one-year rate increase for 2025 that allows the Project 3 to continue to move forward, but also gives us time to work with federal and provincial partners to find another way.
The city says it needs the increase to pay for major capital upgrades like the third and final phase of the North End sewage treatment plant. If council approved what the city proposed, an average family of 4 would see their annual bill rise by $1,000 by 2027, from just over $1,300 to just over $2,300. Gillingham proposed a one-time increase of about $18.67 per month, starting April 1st, which works out to $168 this year. Gillingham says he will work with the provincial and federal governments to find other long-term funding options for the plant upgrades to lower rate increases in future years.
Amortize this out over multiple years, 30 or beyond 30 years, and protect ratepayers. To utilize the infrastructure bank, that may be one of the options that we're looking at.
The city is also changing the way it bills for solid waste collection, rolling garbage, recycling, and yard waste into a new waste management fee. The current waste diversion fee for residential customers is $93 per year. Under the new fee structure, that would rise to $254, an increase of $161. Combined, the fee increases for sewer and garbage for a household of 4 add up to about $324 this year. Water and Waste Committee Chair Ross Eady acknowledged that is a steep increase.
And so there will be a motion to reduce those fees, but the fees have to reflect the cost for us to deal with all the solid waste in the City of Winnipeg.
The Water and Waste Committee will debate the proposed fee increases at its meeting next Tuesday. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
15 years after closing its doors, a Winnipeg movie theatre is firing back up its screens. But this time, it won't just be Hollywood blockbusters. Bollywood is calling. Shannalee Vidal has the story.
I'm Shannalee Vidal, and I'm here at Garden City Cinemas in Winnipeg. The theatre recently reopened after being closed for 15 years. Well, you can catch some Hollywood blockbusters here. The main focus is on Bollywood.
Welcome to Garden City Cinemas. I'm Thomas Oberlin, and I'm the new manager here at Garden City Cinemas. York Cinemas shows a lot of Bollywood movies in Toronto, and they saw this community as like multicultural, growing community that could use some of this media, some of these movies, and something that they want to see. Our goal is to show half new release English movies and then half South Indian, Filipino movies, Bollywood movies. This is theater number 1. Everything in here is brand new. We have new seats in both theaters, new screens, all new Dolby sound system. We kept the same kind of footprint, so it has the old style, like slanted ramp style cinema. I've watched a couple of the movies that we're showing, and there's a lot of English already in the movie, and also like our subtitles are very, very easy to read. I think it's a really accessible way for people to, be exposed to something that they wouldn't see normally. So this week we showed, 2 South Indian movies. They're both action movies. We had a movie about kind of boxing, and we had a movie about this man, his wife gets taken from him. Yeah, and they're really like action-packed.
I will shoot! I am not here to fight. Officer down! Officer down!
So far we've had kind of a mixed reaction to the South Indian movies, especially because there's another theater just around the corner that shows similar options. But I think the community is slowly warming up to the idea of watching some of these movies. We're also getting a lot of requests from the community for Hindi movies and Punjabi movies and those Filipino movies.
Garden City Cinemas opened on February 21st. For its first week, there was a special deal to get people in the door. It also evoked some nostalgia.
It went really well. It brought a lot of traffic through the door, a lot of people interested, even just to come look and see what the space looks like versus how it did when it closed. I remember coming to the mall with my family and lining up outside, waiting to come in. I remember seeing all of the prequel Star Wars movies. My family's huge into Star Wars.
By the way, there is another movie theater that also focuses on mostly South Asian language films. Cinema City Northgate is owned by Cineplex, and it's also located within the Garden City neighborhood. Shanley Vidal, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, we saw that little skiff of snow out there today, but those spring-like temperatures are still in play. Let's bring in Ethan Williams for a look at our forecast. Ethan.
Well, a little bit of some snow activity, Brittany, around the Winnipeg area and through the Red River Valley as we've gotten into Tuesday afternoon. But that's really the only area of the province where we've sort of been seeing that through Tuesday here. Cloud cover, a dominating feature for many of us, though. We've seen some clearing skies in behind us, sort of this bank of cloud cover, but a little bit starting to move through northern Manitoba. But I think for southern parts of the province, this area of high pressure is going to start to clear things out as we head overnight. For northern Manitoba, though, we're watching this low pressure system, which is going to be bringing through some snowfall as we get overnight into Wednesday and through the day on Wednesday. And a little bit of that could be spreading into southern parts of the province as we get into the wee hours of Thursday morning. And again, maybe reaching Winnipeg and the Red River Valley with some flurries or light snow at that point. But this pretty quickly moves out of the way and we get some sunshine returning for Thursday. We are watching our next little system that'll be moving in from Saskatchewan as we get to later into Thursday and early Friday. Most of that snow going to be centered over northern Manitoba, and there could be some pockets here of maybe 5 to 10 centimeters, especially right along the Hudson Bay coast. The kind of coastline there, I think, is where we might be seeing that. Maybe around Gillam, 5 to 10 centimeters. But for most of the rest of us, it's just kind of 2 to 4 centimeters of snow through northern Manitoba. For the south, again, not expecting any significant accumulation, even if we do see a little bit of that snow moving through, maybe 1 to 3 centimeters generally, and that extends as well back into northwestern Ontario. Winds have come down or will be coming down as we get into Wednesday, picking up a little bit where that low pressure system moves through. We'll see those pick up, especially for southern Manitoba as we get into early Thursday, and they'll be breezy along the Hudson Bay coast as we get into Thursday afternoon. But not too bad to walk the dog. And if you would like to inquire about Drew, he is 5 months old and he is available at the Flin Flon SPCA. So give them a shout if you're interested. And of course, you can always send us your pet photos anytime to our email address. Now, over the next few days, we'll see those temperatures dropping back a bit closer to seasonal. Maybe some morning flurries on Thursday before things clear out. But overall, temperatures looking pretty nice as we head over the next few days. And I'll have a full look at the 7-day forecast, Brittany, coming up a little bit later.
Thank you, Ethan. Well, we have much more to come after this. Stay with us. We're back in just a few minutes. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. As we mentioned, Donald Trump has unleashed his trade war with America's closest neighbor, and Canada is retaliating as promised by imposing counter tariffs. The U.S. move caused a rare moment of unity across party lines in Ottawa. Ashley Burke reports.
The Prime Minister defiant with a message aimed directly at Donald Trump.
Now, it's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal, but Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do.
His comments carried live all over the U.S., where Trump claims his tariff war is about Canada allowing fentanyl across the border.
The excuse that he's giving for these Paris tariffs today of fentanyl is completely bogus, completely unjustified, completely false.
What Trump's really after, Trudeau says, is crushing Canada.
What he wants is to see a total collapse of the Canadian economy, because that'll make it easier to annex us.
And to Trudeau, what's chilling is how Trump's moving America away from its allies and closer to Moscow.
They're talking about working positively with Russia, appeasing Vladimir Putin, a lying, murderous dictator. Make that make sense.
To try and end it, Canada is striking back, slapping tariffs on $30 billion worth of American goods, like groceries, alcohol, and clothing, then hitting another $125 billion worth of U.S. products with taxes in 3 weeks.
President Trump stabbed America's best friend in the back.
The Conservatives leader says the money the government collects from counter tariffs should go into Canadians' pockets.
Almost every penny of the tariffs collected should go to tax cuts, with a small sum set aside for targeted relief to workers hardest hit by the trade war.
But the NDP's calling for immediate relief.
If you cut someone's taxes, they have no income, what's the point? I'm talking about getting people the protection in place that they need so they can actually survive.
The Prime Minister says this tariff war is going to hurt Canadians and is promising to expand EI benefits to help, but isn't releasing details yet. Trudeau also says the government plans to challenge what he calls America's illegal actions. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
The response from Canadian premiers against the U.S. tariffs was equally swift, equally critical, and equally defiant. Olivia Stefanovich has that story.
As soon as they opened, liquor stores across the country began emptying their shelves of American booze to send U.S. President Donald Trump a message.
Unfortunately, some people seem to need to touch the hot stove to learn that it's hot. And while we cannot control or predict their behavior, we can control how we respond.
And to see this escalation is so disappointing, so damaging.
You know, he put up a...
Premiers hit the U.S. cable circuit.
The market is speaking loud and clear. The market is going to go downhill faster than the American bobsled team.
And announced plans to ban Americans from bidding on provincial contracts while tearing up existing agreements.
We're ripping up Ontario's contract with Starlink. It's done. It's gone. We won't award contracts to people who enable and encourage economic attacks on our province and our country.
But they didn't go so far as to shut off the lights of American customers. Ontario Premier Doug Ford says he's prepared to apply a 25% surcharge on electricity exports if Trump doesn't relent. And he's not alone.
We must not rule out anything for the future.
Quebec is also mulling further retaliatory options, including targeting American electricity, with 160,000 jobs at risk in La Belle Province alone.
It is a very sad day to have to find ourselves in a trade war with a long-standing partner.
Especially after spending tens of millions of dollars to boost security at border crossings.
I would say that without doubt, the president's demands were met. And yet, it did not matter.
Now that punishing levies are in place, the focus is shifting to financial support. New Brunswick is already offering $40 million to help companies find other markets, with other provinces following with similar measures.
We are going to get through it.
It is going to be tough. It is going to cost money.
The premiers met with the Prime Minister to discuss how to help Canadian industries and workers cope with the economic pain and feared recession looming on the horizon. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
Now, Trump is also reacting to Canada's countermeasures against his tariffs. The U.S. president took to social media mocking the Prime Minister and threatening to escalate the trade war even further. CBC's Megan Fitzpatrick reports from Washington.
After weeks of threats, negotiations, and delays, President Donald Trump pulled the tariff trigger on America's continental trading partners. The U.S. markets didn't react well to the new tariffs on Canadian and Mexican goods and the additional tariff on China that went into effect just after midnight. Stock markets plummeted when trading got underway. Trump pays close attention to the markets, and it seems he was also tuning in to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's news conference, where he announced Canada's plan to retaliate. Soon after it finished, the president wrote on social media, "Please explain to Governor Trudeau of Canada that when he puts on a retaliatory tariff on the U.S., our reciprocal tariff will immediately increase by a like amount." Trump, who has taken to calling Trudeau governor as part of his musing about Canada becoming a 51st state, plans to impose even more tariffs in early April on any country that has tariffs on U.S. goods. Those measures will layer on top of today's tariffs and on top of planned tariffs on steel and aluminum coming into effect next week. Today's tariffs, though, are all because Canada failed to stop the flow of fentanyl across the border, according to Vice President J.D. Vance.
The Canadians have allowed a lot of fentanyl to come into the country. It's not a defense to say more has come from Mexico, because way too much has come from Mexico, too.
Trump is expected to promote his tariff plan later tonight when he delivers a speech to Congress. On Capitol Hill, some Republicans are cheering on his use of tariffs.
All these countries around the world have taken advantage of America. The America First agenda is to reset those relationships.
But critics like Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren say the tariffs will drive up prices for Americans and hurt a friendly ally.
We don't have those kinds of problems with Canada. They've done everything they can. They're a cooperative neighbor here. And across-the-board tariffs like this, just so that Donald Trump can beat his chest about how tough he is with a neighbor, it's not helping us. What it's doing is it's driving up costs.
The CEO of major retailer Target warned Americans today that food prices could shoot up within days. So with a trade war now underway, consumers on both sides of the U.S.-Canada border are bracing for just how hard these tariffs might hit their wallets. Megan Fitzpatrick, CBC News, Washington.
Now tonight, Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault hosts CBC News special coverage, bringing Canadian context around this historic day in the U.S.-Canada trade war, with reaction and analysis to help understand how the new tariffs will affect you. We'll also bring you President Trump's address tonight to the U.S. Congress. Coverage starts at 7 o'clock right after our show here in Manitoba on CBC News Network, and will begin half an hour later on CBC TV. Now, Mexico's president says multiple countermeasures are being planned after that country was also hit with tariffs. But unlike Canada, which immediately responded with its retaliatory tariffs, Mexico is set to announce its plan on Sunday. President Claudia Sheinbaum says Mexico is already addressing the Trump administration's concerns over drug trafficking. She also says a trade war will negatively affect jobs in both countries and will lead to a price hike for Americans and businesses that rely on Mexican goods. Volodymyr Zelensky says last week's blow-up with Trump was, quote, regrettable, and says he's ready to sign the U.S. rare minerals deal. The Ukrainian president's remarks come a day after Trump ordered a pause on American military aid to Ukraine. Meantime, as Chris Brown reports, the EU has unveiled a plan to dramatically boost defense spending.
Ukrainians, of course, feared this day might come, that their biggest, most important ally might abandon its military support. We've heard the word betrayal and a lot of comments from ordinary Ukrainians, although government officials are trying to sound calm. President Volodymyr Zelensky, who was admonished and humiliated by Donald Trump and his VP last week in Washington, took to social media and he said it's time to make things right. He said the encounter in the White House was regrettable and that Ukraine is ready to come to the negotiating table under Donald Trump's strong leadership in search of peace and also to sign that minerals agreement. So not quite an apology that the White House appeared to be demanding, but clearly some very contrite words. Will it be enough, though, to get the weapons pause lifted? The implications for Ukraine's ability to hold off Vladimir Putin's army are extremely serious, while Ukraine likely has enough weaponry to secure the front lines for a few months. The cumulative impact of losing U.S. air defense systems and long-range missiles will be extremely damaging.
Without the missiles and ammunition for air defense, without it, there will be more casualties among civilians and more damages to civilian and strategic infrastructure.
The head of the European Union, Ursula von der Leyen, vowed that Europe will step up.
Rearm Europe could mobilize close to 800 billion euros of defense expenditures for a safe and resilient Europe. We will, of course, continue working closely with our partners in NATO. This is a moment for Europe, and we are ready to step up.
Beyond Ukraine, in the streets of Moscow, we've heard Russians sounding quite gleeful that they're happy with Trump's decision, as now the Ukrainians won't have anything to fight with. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
Is the Canadian dream of buying a home still a reality for the next generation? Or is the aspiration of that long gone? What some Gen Zers have to say after the break. Stay with us. Ontario's health system is the latest to change its screening for cervical cancer, opting to test for the virus believed to cause the vast majority of cases. The CBC's Jennifer Yoon reports on the reasons for the change and the broader effort at early detection.
Ontarians getting a cervical cancer screening may not notice the difference, but starting Monday, doctors will have a more accurate test for the cancer, which kills hundreds of Canadians every year.
Cervix cancer in Canada is really low because we have screening tests, but it's the highest rising cancer in women because people aren't getting screened. Here's a better test.
The HPV test will now replace the Pap test in Ontario, following the lead of Quebec, BC, and PEI. HPV is responsible for 95% of cervical cancers.
Putting the sample.
And the test gives doctors a sense of whether your cells could become cancerous in the future. The Pap test only picks up abnormal cells that already exist.
We can evaluate your cervix earlier and not wait for there to be harm. So it gives us an idea of who to look at more closely and when to do that.
The Pap, you go to the little circle.
There's another benefit. A Pap test needs to be done every 3 years. HPV tests can be done every 5. But it still requires a pelvic exam, which can be uncomfortable.
I hate pelvic exams. History of trauma, cultural sensitivities.
British Columbia tried to change that with less invasive self-testing kits you can do in the comfort of your own home. But it's not been perfect. Those deemed high risk could need a colposcopy, a specialized procedure that looks more closely at the cervix. Since BC put in place self-testing, there's been a backlog.
We have been experiencing increase in wait times to colposcopy as a result of the surge in screening and the surge in positive results.
Despite that, BC's program director says self-testing does work. It's accessible and accurate. Health officials in Ontario say they're looking at making self-tests widely available once they have more data. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, in just a few days, we'll be looking to spring forward on those clocks, but will we have spring weather? Let's bring in Ethan Williams for a check on that. Ethan.
Well, I thought I'd start with a look at the pretty healthy snowpack that we have, especially through northern Manitoba. Again, some areas well over 50 centimeters of snowpack. Southern areas, we've gotten a little bit of melting action, so that has reduced the snowpack a little bit. A little bit of snow over the next couple of days here going to help fill that in, but not by a whole lot, especially through the southern half of the province. For Winnipeg, as of February 28th, we were sitting kind of anywhere between 15 and 25 centimeters of snow on the ground, and the end of February average is around 17 centimeters. So some parts of the city pretty much bang on average. Some of us a little higher than normal. We will hope for maybe a bit of a slower melt to help that prevent any flooding. Now, overall, as we take a look at winter, December, January, February, you know, a lot of us actually seeing below average snowpack, including in places like Winnipeg and Emerson. But as you went a little further west, you see Dauphin, Swan River closer to normal. Into northern Manitoba, though, that's where we see amounts that were well above average in some cases, including in Lynn Lake and the Paw. Further east, though, Churchill, around Gillam, that was where those amounts were a little bit lower than normal. Temperature-wise, a bit of a mixed bag. All of us not really all that much above or below normal when it came to winter as a whole, only by a few degrees on either side, but it was northern Manitoba where almost all locations were above seasonal for throughout much of the winter, and in some cases almost 2 degrees, especially up around Churchill. But for overnight, as we head into Wednesday, much of southern Manitoba dropping back a bit into that -10 to -15 range, kind of looking at a mix of, or kind of partly cloudy conditions, I guess you could call them, as we head into the overnight. For northern Manitoba, still looking at some cloud cover. And again, this is where the snow is going to start to move in as we get into the early morning hours of Wednesday. Lynn Lake, Flin Flon, all along the Saskatchewan border, that's where that's going to start to move in. That moves eastward as we head through Wednesday. Temperatures, though, staying well above seasonal for much of the north. For southern Manitoba, again, we are looking at things clearing out for the most part, especially as we get later into the afternoon with those temperatures hovering around the freezing mark. A little bit of that snow may hit Winnipeg and the Red River Valley and eastern sections as we head into Thursday, Brittany, but overall looking at a pretty nice day ahead.
Thank you, Ethan. Well, buying a home is a dream for many people, and for some, it's a reality that seems to be getting further away. Getting into the housing market can be tough, and with inflation and the rising cost of living, even harder. CBC's Margot Watt spoke with 3 university students about the future of becoming a first-time homebuyer, including 22-year-old Payden Rowland, who hopes to buy his home in the next few years.
Oh, yep. I knew since I was in high school there, I was like, I'm going to get down to it. I want to own that house. I don't really want to rent an apartment. I'm still living at home at the moment. And I knew that house is what I wanted to move out into.
So what do your friends say when you tell them where you're at with this?
I'd say my friends, they're very supportive. They're like, I respect that. And a lot of them have that same plan there. They all want to move out. They don't want to move into an apartment. They're all still living at home, which I think is a more common thing nowadays, to live at home while you're in school at least.
Right. How challenging has it been saving up the money for the down payment?
I'd say not too challenging. I am living at home, and the parents, I'm so thankful for them. They haven't charged me rent, and I'm able to eat off their dime. So my expenses have been pretty minimal through the years. You buy some fast food there, you buy this and that, but the car is a big dent. But other than that, it's mostly just going into that bank account, going into those savings, and so on and so forth.
So Dakota, you'd love to buy a home when you listen to Payden? What's going through your mind?
It's very optimistic. I've also been working since I was like 15 years old as like a server. Like that's a lot different, yeah. And I've been working a lot of like retail jobs as somebody who's like grown up. I used to live in East St. Paul. Now I'm living in North Kildonan. I also live with my parents, and I'm so grateful that I don't have to pay rent as well. It's a great privilege, I think. But I'm still like, obviously I thought I was going to be a teacher before I figured out that's not for me, and I'm really finding my footing in theater now, and I'm really loving it. However, there's a joke that goes around being like, oh, I can't wait to graduate theater school so I could become a barista. And the big thing that comes to me is, as like a theater professional, as an artist, yes, I can apply for grants and I can make this work, and I could also pick up other odd jobs, whether that's as a small business selling my art or as that retail jobs. However, those jobs, or even with doing them in multiplicity, is not going to allow me to really make savings. I'm already having bills I'm trying to pay, and it's hard enough already. Like I do pay for some of my own groceries, and I get help from family, and I am really grateful to be like sponsored by my reservation to come to school. And it's
still hard.
Yeah. And there's a lot of other aspects that come into it, but just for buying a home, something I'm hearing from my peers, in like wild contrast to Payden over here, is like, oh, I can't wait to move out so I can rent my first apartment. And I think it really speaks to this escapism of our generation, like not actually facing the fact of accepting that we won't be able to buy the very first house that we want, or being able to own it, based on the salaries and pay wages that we're being offered right now.
Do you see yourself as a homeowner one day?
God willing. I would love to own my own home. I was talking with a lot of people over the weekend about this. One of my friends is a real estate agent. He's only a couple years older than me. I was like, that's a wild career choice, man. But props to you, Daniel. I love you. A big thing that we were talking about is a lot of people, when they think about buying a home, is that they think they're going to buy their ideal home, like Payden was saying, and like this big house, your dream home. Daniel was saying that really isn't optimistic, because to save up for a down payment for that is a lot of money, and then to also get accepted by a bank or credit union. My concern comes in, I know I'm in a very privileged place in my life right now. Like, I'm not working right now, which is one thing, but there's another thing where there are families where multiple people in the household are working multiple jobs, and they're still barely making ends meet. How are they making savings so then they can save up to buy a house rather than rent?
Adam, how about you? Do you see yourself buying a house anytime soon?
Yeah, no, my plan is kind of to hopefully be in the position to buy a house in the next 3 to 5 years. I'm going to have to take the approach, like I'm a carpenter, so I can use that to my advantage a little bit. I can buy a house that's much cheaper and maybe less in value and bring it up to the value that I want it for a more affordable price.
That's a great skill to have. If there's a do-it-yourselfer kind of ad, it's like, okay, maybe I can.
Yeah, and but just from work alone, it would be hard to. I'm in a similar situation to these folks here, where I pay a very small rent and my bills are relatively low. But yeah, I'm gonna have to buy a cheaper house and put some work into it.
Only thing on my agenda is beers and sunshine, bonfires in summertime, back porch nights in South Carolina.
Grammy Award-winning country music superstar Darius Rucker is coming to Winnipeg. He'll be playing at Canada Life Centre this October. Tickets go on sale Friday at 10 a.m. We're back right after this.
Yeah, the only BS I need is beers and sunshine.
This is Manitoba, and this is Manitoba on your smart TV, because CBC News is now streaming local. Get local headlines, weather, and community notices, plus newscasts and live programming on your favorite connected device, all for free. It's called the CBC News Manitoba streaming channel. See your community on your connected TV and mobile devices. CBC News Manitoba, your local news streaming channel, now available.
Well, a nice Wednesday in store for a lot of us, sitting around the freezing mark in Winnipeg. Temperature's going to be dropping back a little bit closer to seasonal for Thursday, Friday, with a possible morning flurries on Thursday. Showers or flurries possible for Saturday as we jump above that freezing mark once again. Sunday, I think we'll be looking at a sun-cloud mix. That'll probably be the nicest of the 2 days of the weekend. Before we get into Monday and Tuesday, that cloud cover returning. Our temperatures sitting just above freezing. And a little bit of a breeze, I think, possible for Tuesday. But you notice those overnight lows for this time of year should be closer to around -14 or so. But many of these not just above that, Brittany, but staying above the -10 mark as well. So things looking pretty nice these next 7 days.
Thank you, Ethan. Well, a tour guide in Churchill captured close-up footage of a mother polar bear cuddling with her cub. That story is tonight's Daily Lift.
Being able to share these intimate moments are where the connections happen. We got a call that the trackers had found a mom and cub. We pulled up and the cub started to get restless and started climbing around on mom. And I've got a young one at home. So as I was watching this mom and cub interact, it reminded me a lot of my own little one crawling all over. Everybody was just in the moment. These predators sharing these intimate moments, you feel in some ways removed, in some ways more connected with the earth, with everything that's going on around you. What a beautiful place we are in. It's got amazing northern lights. And then the Churchill River, we've got 3,500 beluga whales. It's known as the polar bear capital of the world. You got to make a trip to Churchill.
The beauty of Manitoba's north and a little snuggle with mom. Just a reminder, in half hour, CBC will have more coverage on the trade war and will bring you Donald Trump's address to the U.S. Congress right here on CBC. So stick with us for that. Have a wonderful night. I'll see you back here tomorrow.